I never imagined a simple oversight would reveal Jenna's true colors. "Margaret, I forgot my wallet. Can't you just cover for me this once? You always make a big deal out of your back pain, but come on, it can't be that bad." Her words, sharp and dismissive, cut through the air between us. I stood there, aghast, not just at her forgetting her wallet again, but at her blatant disregard for my condition. "You know, Jenna, my back pain isn't just a minor inconvenience, and it's not about the money," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rising irritation. "It's about consideration, something you seem to lack." Jenna rolled her eyes, a gesture so dismissive it sent a wave of anger through me. "Oh, please, Margaret, you're overreacting. It's just lunch." "I'll pay you back," she said, her tone implying the conversation was beneath her. This wasn't the first time Jenna had shown such disrespect. Since marrying my son Lucas, she had become increasingly brazen in her selfishness. I had hoped, for Lucas's sake, that she would change, but it was clear she saw no issue with her behavior. Arthur, my husband, always advised patience. "Give her time, Margaret, she'll come around." But as we walked out of the cafe, me having paid for our meals, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jenna's actions were a glimpse into a much darker side of her character. The drive home was silent. Arthur seemed to sense my frustration, choosing not to speak. I appreciated his understanding, but part of me wished he would share in my indignation. After all, Jenna's behavior affected us both. Upon arriving home, I found solace in my garden, a place where I could find peace and think. Yet, Jenna's words lingered, a bitter aftertaste that no amount of gardening could wash away. Later that evening, as Arthur and I sat down for dinner, he finally broke his silence. "Margaret, perhaps Jenna didn't mean it the way it came out. You know how she is, always speaking before thinking." I looked at him, a mix of disbelief and sadness in my eyes. "Arthur, when will it be enough? When will we stop making excuses for her? She's not just thoughtless, she's cruel." Arthur sighed, a deep, weary sound. "I know, Margaret, I know, but she's Lucas's wife. What can we do?" The question hung in the air between us, unanswered. We finished our meal in silence, both lost in our thoughts. I couldn't help but wonder if Jenna's behavior was a storm cloud on the horizon, a warning of a tempest yet to come. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. That night, as I lay in bed, I made a decision. I wouldn't let Jenna's disrespect go unchallenged any longer. For the sake of my family, I would have to find a way to expose her true nature to Lucas. He deserved to know the kind of person he had married. But as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that settled in my heart. What would this revelation cost us all? This confrontation with Jenna at the cafe was a pivotal moment, the spark that ignited my resolve. It was time for action. But first, I needed proof. I needed to show Lucas not just the disrespect she had shown me, but the full extent of her selfishness and cruelty. And so, my plan began to take shape. The sound of laughter and the clinking of coffee cups often take me back to when Arthur and I first met, in a small cafe not unlike the one Jenna and I had just left. It was a simpler time, a moment in my life filled with hope and the sweet promise of new love. I remember when this cafe was just a bookstore. Arthur mentioned one lazy Sunday afternoon, our hands entwined across the table. "It's where I bought your first birthday present." I smiled, the memory bright in my mind. A collection of poems. "You said it was because every time we talked, it felt like poetry." Arthur chuckled, a sound that warmed my heart. "And you told me it was the most thoughtful gift anyone had ever given you." Those early days were filled with such tenderness, a stark contrast to the tension that now threaded through our daily lives. Jenna's presence in our family had brought strife where there once was harmony. Our son Lucas, once so vibrant and full of life, had grown quieter, more withdrawn. I often wondered if he sensed the growing storm, if he saw the cracks in the facade of his marriage. "Dinner's ready," I called out one evening, breaking the silence that had settled in our home. Lucas and Jenna joined us at the table, the air thick with unspoken words. As we ate, I tried to steer the conversation towards happier times, hoping to bridge the gap that had formed between us. "Do you remember the trip we took to the lake house?" I asked, looking towards Lucas. "You caught your first fish, and you were so proud." Lucas smiled, a flicker of the sun I knew. "Yeah, I remember. Jenna, you would have loved it. The lake was so peaceful." Jenna, uninterested, barely looked up from her plate. Sounds boring. I prefer the city, more to do, more to see. Arthur attempted to smooth over the awkward moment. Well, perhaps we can plan a trip to the city then. Make some new memories. Jenna scoffed. With what money? You know Lucas and I are saving up, unless of course you're offering to pay for it. The blatant rudeness of her remark left me speechless. Lucas, too, seemed taken aback, but he said nothing, a silence that spoke volumes. Arthur, ever the peacemaker, simply nodded. We'll see what we can do. The meal ended quickly after that, the unspoken tension finally breaking as Jenna excused herself, claiming a headache. As the dishes were cleared away, Lucas lingered at the table, a rare moment alone with his father and me. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry about Jenna. She's been under a lot of stress lately, he said, his voice low. We understand, Lucas, but it's important she respects your family, Arthur replied, his tone firm yet gentle. Lucas nodded, a troubled look on his face. I know. I'll talk to her. But as he left the room, I couldn't help but wonder if words would be enough to mend what had been broken. Jenna's disdain for our way of life, her blatant disrespect for the values we held dear, had driven a wedge between us all. It was clear that something had to change. I could no longer sit back and watch as Jenna tore our family apart with her selfishness and greed. The question was, how could I protect my family from the storm that was Jenna, without losing them in the process? As I pondered this, I realized the answer lay in the past. Just as Arthur and I had built our family on a foundation of love and understanding, so too would we need to return to those values to save it. But first, Jenna's true nature had to be exposed, and for that I would need to be patient, watchful, and above all, clever. Arthur's workshop was his sanctuary, a place where he retreated to craft and repair, a hobby that brought him peace. It was there I found him, sanding down a piece of oak that would soon become a bookshelf for our living room. Arthur, we need to talk about Jenna, I began, my tone more serious than I intended. He paused, looking up with a sigh. What's she done now? It's not just one thing. It's everything. Her demands, her disrespect. It's like she's testing us, seeing how much she can get away with. Arthur set down his tools, giving me his full attention. I know, Margaret. It's been hard on all of us, but what can we do? Lucas loves her. But at what cost? I countered. We taught Lucas to be kind, to be generous. But Jenna, she takes advantage of those qualities. And it's not just us. I've heard things from the neighbors, from friends. She's not just unkind to us. Arthur nodded, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. What do you suggest we do? We need evidence, something to show Lucas, to make him see her for what she truly is. And how do you propose we do that? I'm not sure yet, but I'll find a way. The opportunity presented itself sooner than I expected. Jenna's birthday was approaching, and despite everything, we decided to throw her a small party. It was a chance to extend an olive branch, perhaps mend some fences. The day of the party, Jenna arrived late, her entrance grandiose and unapologetic. Sorry I'm late, but you know, the salon had a long wait. You don't mind, do you? Her tone was flippant, her attitude dismissive, as if our efforts meant nothing. The guests shifted uncomfortably, the air thick with tension. As the evening progressed, Jenna's true nature began to show. She criticized the food, the decorations, even the guests. Is this the best wine you could afford? I would have expected something nicer from Lucas's parents. Her words were like daggers, and I saw the hurt in Arthur's eyes. This was his breaking point. Jenna, we've welcomed you into our home, into our family. Your words, your actions, they hurt us. Is this how you treat family? Jenna laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. Oh, please, you're just too sensitive. I'm just being honest. Someone has to be. The room fell silent, the guests witnessing the unraveling of a family. It was then I realized this was the evidence we needed. Not through hidden means, but in plain sight. Jenna had exposed herself. As the party ended and the guests left, Lucas approached us. His face was a mix of embarrassment and apology. Mom, Dad, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Lucas. We're your family. We just want what's best for you, Arthur said, his voice steady. But I knew it wasn't enough. Seeing and acknowledging Jenna's behavior was one thing, taking action was another. That night, as I lay in bed, my mind raced with plans and possibilities. Jenna's behavior at the party was just the tip of the iceberg. To protect Lucas, to save our family, I needed more than just words. I needed a plan a way to expose Jenna's greed and selfishness once and for all. And as dawn broke, a plan began to take shape. A plan that would require patience, precision, and a bit of subterfuge. Jenna had shown her true colors, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. The morning of our anniversary, Arthur and I woke to a silence that hung between us like a heavy curtain. Today marked 40 years of marriage, a milestone we had once looked forward to celebrating with joy and festivity, yet the anticipation that should have filled our home was tainted by the dread of Jenna's latest charade. "I can't believe we agreed to this," I murmured as we sat at the kitchen table, our coffee growing cold between us. Arthur, looking tired and worn, simply nodded. "Let's just get through tonight, for Lucas." The doorbell rang, disrupting the quiet. Jenna stood at the doorstep, dressed flamboyantly, as if the evening was about her. "Ready for your big surprise?" she chimed, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. The drive to the restaurant was filled with Jenna's chatter about everything and nothing. Lucas was silent, a tightness around his eyes. Upon arrival, the extravagance of the venue took my breath away. It was the kind of place Arthur and I would never choose for ourselves, preferring the comfort of familiarity over opulence. Jenna's choice was a clear statement, a display of her control over Lucas and, by extension, us. The meal was an array of dishes we had never heard of, each more elaborate than the last. Jenna basked in the luxury, commenting on the quality of the food, the service, the ambiance, as if to remind us of our ordinary lives. As the evening drew to a close and the waiter placed the bill on the table, Jenna's act reached its climax. "Oh dear, I seem to have forgotten my purse." "How clumsy of me," she said, her voice dripping with feigned distress. The silence that followed was palpable. Arthur reached for the bill, resignation in his every move. But this time, I felt a spark of defiance ignite within me. "No, Arthur. Let's see how this plays out," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Jenna's eyes flicked between us, her mask slipping. "Well, Lucas, looks like you'll have to cover this one. I'll pay you back, I promise." Lucas, finally breaking his silence, looked at Jenna with a dawning realization. "This was supposed to be your gift to them, Jenna. Why would you invite us here without planning to pay?" Jenna's facade crumbled, revealing the selfishness beneath. "I just thought, it's your parents. You wouldn't want them to think we're cheap, right?" The ride home was a quiet storm. Lucas was lost in thought, Jenna sullen and silent. Arthur and I exchanged a look, a silent agreement that this was the beginning of the end. The next morning, Lucas came to our house alone. The lines on his face spoke of a sleepless night, of decisions made and yet to be enacted. "Mom, Dad, I'm sorry about last night. About everything," he began, his voice heavy with emotion. "I've been blind, but I see now. Jenna's not the person I thought she was." Arthur and I listened as Lucas spoke of his plans, of the conversations he needed to have with Jenna, of the changes that were coming. It was a moment of bitter victory, the truth laid bare at a cost we had never wished to pay. As Lucas left, promising to keep us informed, Arthur and I sat in the quiet aftermath. The truth about Jenna was out, but the path ahead was uncertain. Our family was fractured, and the journey to healing would be long and fraught with difficulty. But in that moment, there was also a sense of relief. The pretense was gone, the lies exposed, and in their place stood the possibility of a future built on honesty, respect, and love. A future where our family could once again find peace. The days following the disastrous anniversary dinner were marked by an uneasy silence. Lucas had confronted Jenna, leading to arguments that echoed through their home, reaching us in hushed, pained recounts from our son. It was during this tumultuous time that Jenna, perhaps in an attempt to mend fences or, more likely, to salvage her tarnished image, extended an olive branch in the form of a shopping trip. "Costco's opening a new store nearby," Jenna announced over a rare family dinner at our place. "Why don't we all go?" "My treat." Arthur and I exchanged wary glances. Lucas looked from Jenna to us, a silent plea in his eyes. Reluctantly, we agreed. The morning of the trip, Jenna arrived with an air of forced cheerfulness. "Ready for some shopping fun?" she chirped, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. The store was a bustling hive of activity, with shoppers maneuvering their carts like contestants in an obstacle course. Jenna, with a zeal that seemed genuine, filled our cart with an assortment of goods, from bulk packages of paper towels to gourmet cheeses. As we approached the checkout, Jenna's demeanor shifted subtly. She began fidgeting, her eyes darting around as if looking for an escape. Then, with a casualness that was too deliberate, she murmured, "Oh, I think I left my phone in the car. Be right back." Arthur and I stood in line, the cart between us, a monument to Jenna's extravagance. Minutes ticked by, and Jenna did not return. As we reached the cashier, the realization dawned on us with the clarity of a cloudless sky. Jenna had no intention of paying. The cashier, a young woman with a polite smile, scanned the items one by one, the total climbing with each beep. Arthur reached for his wallet, but I placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. "Wait," I said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. This was supposed to be Jenna's treat. Let's not take that away from her. The line behind us grew restless, murmurs of impatience filling the air. Lucas, caught between loyalty to his mother and the wife he was beginning to see through, looked at me with wide, understanding eyes. "I'll go find her," he said, his voice tinged with embarrassment. But Arthur and I knew there was no point. Jenna had made her play, and it was time for us to make ours. "We'll just buy what we came for," I told the cashier, removing the majority of Jenna's selections from the cart, leaving only a few essentials. When Jenna finally reappeared, her phone conspicuously in hand, the deed was done. Our message was clear. We would no longer be manipulated or taken advantage of. "Where'd everything go?" Jenna asked, feigning confusion. "We thought it best to only buy what we needed," Arthur replied, his voice calm but firm. Jenna's facade cracked, her frustration visible for a brief moment before she regained her composure. "Well, I guess that makes sense. Ready to go?" But as we left Costco, the divide between us was wider than the aisles of the warehouse store. Jenna had shown her true colors once again, and this time we had called her bluff. The ride home was a silent testament to shifting dynamics within our family. Lucas, once blind to Jenna's manipulations, now saw her with new clarity. And for Arthur and me, it was a confirmation of our resolve to protect our family, no matter the cost. Jenna's attempt at reconciliation had backfired, exposing her selfishness further and pushing Lucas closer to a decision we all knew was inevitable. The end of their marriage loomed on the horizon, a painful but necessary conclusion to a union built on deceit. The weeks following the Costco debacle were tense. Jenna's facade of the doting daughter-in-law had shattered completely, her true nature exposed not just to us, but to Lucas as well. It was during this time of silent battles and unspoken grievances that the final act of Jenna's charade came to light. Lucas came to us one evening, a look of determination set upon his features that I hadn't seen in years. "I need to talk to you both," he began, his voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil that lay beneath. "What is it, Lucas?" Arthur asked, concern evident in his voice. "It's about Jenna and me. I've decided to file for divorce." The words hung in the air, a mixture of relief and sorrow. Relief that Lucas had finally seen the truth, sorrow for the pain that truth had caused him. "Lucas, are you sure?" I asked, needing to hear the words from him to understand his decision fully. "Yes, I'm sure. After everything that's happened, after all the lies and manipulation, I can't see any other way. I don't know who she is anymore," he replied, the finality in his voice leaving no room for doubt. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and quiet heartbreak. Jenna, caught off guard by Lucas's decisiveness, oscillated between pleading for reconciliation and lashing out in anger. "You can't do this to me, Lucas, after everything I've done for you," she screamed during one of her tirades, her voice echoing through the halls of their once shared home. "Everything you've done? Jenna, you've lied, manipulated, and hurt everyone around you, including yourself." "This is the only way," Lucas responded, his resolve unwavering. It was amidst this chaos that Jenna's true machinations came to light. Items from our home, precious family heirlooms, had gone missing over the months. Jenna had taken them, selling them off to fund her extravagant lifestyle. The revelation came as a shock, not just to us, but to the community at large. "You were stealing from us?" Arthur confronted Jenna, disbelief and betrayal written across his face. Jenna's response was cold, devoid of remorse. "I needed the money. You have no idea what it's like, living with your expectations, your judgments. But to steal? To betray your family?" I couldn't hide the disgust in my voice, the realization of Jenna's actions cutting deep. Lucas, standing by our side, looked at Jenna with a mixture of pity and revulsion. "It's over, Jenna. You need to leave." And leave she did, her departure marked not by tearful goodbyes, but by a silent acknowledgement of the destruction she had wrought. Jenna's fall from grace was swift, the community shunning her for her deceit and theft. In the end, Lucas was granted a divorce and full custody of their child, the court recognizing the toxicity of Jenna's influence. The house that once echoed with the sounds of a seemingly happy family now stood as a testament to the price of dishonesty and manipulation. As Arthur and I watched Lucas rebuild his life, our hearts ached for the pain he had endured. But there was also hope, a belief that out of the ashes of this ordeal, a stronger, wiser Lucas had emerged. The fall of Jenna served as a harsh reminder of the fragility of trust and the devastating impact of selfishness. But it also reaffirmed the strength of our family, bound not by blood alone, but by the unwavering support and love we shared. In the quiet after the storm, as we gathered around the dinner table, a sense of peace settled over us. Jenna's shadow no longer loomed large in our lives. We were free to move forward, to heal, and to cherish the bonds that had weathered the tempest of betrayal. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, as a family, stronger and more united than ever. The dust had settled in the weeks following Jenna's departure. Our home, once a battleground of wills and wits, had returned to its former state of warmth and peace. Lucas, having weathered the storm of his broken marriage, found solace in the company of family, his resilience a testament to the strength we knew he always possessed. One evening, as we gathered in the living room, the air filled with the light laughter of recovery and the soothing silence of shared experiences, Lucas spoke up, his voice carrying a new depth of wisdom. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he began, catching our attentive gazes, "about Jenna, about us, and about what I want moving forward." Arthur and I exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between us. We had been through the ringer, but we were here, together, and that was what mattered. "Lucas, whatever you decide, know that we're here for you. Always," I said, my voice steady, imbued with the unconditional support that had been the cornerstone of our family. Lucas nodded, a small smile gracing his lips. "I know, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. After everything, I've realized just how important family is, how important honesty and integrity are." The room fell into a contemplative silence, each of us lost in our thoughts, reflecting on the trials that had brought us to this moment of unity and understanding. It's been a hard lesson, but I'm grateful for it, for the clarity it's brought me, and for the chance to start anew. With your help, I want to be a better man, a better father, Lucas continued, his gaze firm and resolute. Arthur leaned forward, placing a reassuring hand on Lucas's shoulder. "Son, you've always been those things. Jenna, she was a storm that threatened to take everything we held dear, but we weathered it together, and will continue to do so, no matter what comes our way." The affirmation was a balm to the wounds left by Jenna's betrayal, a promise of continual support and love. As the night drew on, we talked about the future, about the lessons learned and the paths yet to be taken. Lucas spoke of his hopes for his child, of building a life marked by the values we had always cherished. And as I looked around at my family, at the faces marked by trials yet shining with an unbreakable bond, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Jenna's deceit had brought pain and upheaval, but it had also brought us closer, strengthening our resolve and our commitment to each other. In the end, Jenna's downfall was not just a tale of retribution, but a catalyst for growth and renewal. Her actions, so fraught with selfishness and malice, had unwittingly sown the seeds of her own undoing, leaving in their wake a family more united and resilient than ever before. As we said our goodnights, retreating to the comfort of our beds, I couldn't help but feel hopeful for the future. Jenna had been a dark chapter in our lives, but her story was over. Now it was time to turn the page, to begin anew with the knowledge that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, as a family forged in the fires of adversity, but emerging stronger, wiser, and infinitely more loving.